Hi, it's Martin, Martin's Engine Services. Well, on the engine stand here we have a Ford 2 litre Duratec out of a 2005 Fiesta ST 150. I bought this engine quite a few years ago now when I bought my ST, shortly after I bought my ST, primarily as parts and basically to take a few bits off and have a look. I'd never worked on one of these engines until then. So I picked this up. It was complete with everything. It had all the ancillaries on it. Apart from the exhaust manifold, it was totally complete. Flywheel, clutch, pulleys, which I've taken off and used for spare parts. So I think I paid £100 for it. I know this engine had been burning oil and it was knocking, because when you turn the crank over, you could hear it all rattling. Now, I've never taken the head off this engine. I've never had the cams out. Just thinking, I've robbed a few odds and ends off of it. It's missing the crankshaft now, because a couple of years ago, or about a year and a half ago I suppose, I stole the crank out of it because I wanted the end part of the crank to make put a starter motor on one of my stationary engines. And I had this brainwave of I've got a flywheel, so I needed a bit of crank. So I basically just nicked the crank out of it. I do remember that obviously the bearings were chewed up. I didn't look at the mains or anything. I just unbolted it, stuffed it back together, and that was it. So, excuse me. So I really haven't had a look at anything else. I've no idea what damage on the pistons. I don't know if any of the cam bearings have been picked up. I know nothing more than that. So I'm pretty certain it's a good block. So I thought, right, I'm going to take it apart today. Just have a little look at it, and then just out of curiosity, really, anything else. I'd say the strip down video I made the other day on the 1.6 something Zetec SE come out of a Focus has proved to be very popular. So I thought, oh, well, we'll have a look at this one. Oh, on the subject of that SE Zetec, the crankshaft I did have some concerns on, had that pickup point, the mark on one of the journals where the bearing had picked up. But that actually came off. It was actually a little bit of alley transfer or bearing material. And I gave the rest of the crank a clean up, and it's fine. Absolutely perfect. So I'm pleased about that. So I now have a good crank, good block, pistons and rods. So if I need it, it's all there. So I've oiled it all up and wrapped it up, put it in the shed. So let's pull this apart. I mean, obviously I've had the top off of this in the past, because I did take the cover off and I did practice doing the cam timing on this, because most of the tools from the other Zetecs and bits and pieces fit. So I used it as a bit of a tester. Well, I stole something out of this. The timing chain tensioner. The timing chain tensioner rail and spring were actually missing out of my engine. Someone had put a new chain on and left it out. So I did rob that for that. So I really can't remember what the bottom end was like other than that. So, oops, what the sump was like rather than metal. I have got the oil filter off. I've cut that open and we'll have a look at that later. So let's pop the top. I've undone most of the bolts. You really don't want to watch somebody undoing bolts all day. So here's one I prepared earlier. Well, it would have been. It's been a while since I looked in here. Oh, look. You see how I am? When I say I stole the crank, I didn't even bother taking the chain off. Okay. Well, obviously I've looked in here in the past, but I didn't really study in any great depth, because it's just a spares engine. A bit of oil deposits in there. Chain's not sharp or anything. Doesn't seem too bad. So what I'll do, I'll pop the timing cover off. I've undone most of the bolts. Can't remember exactly what I left in here now. Okay. Well, that answers the question. Yes, that's all the bolts. Just a little bit gungy in the bottom of the cover there. And the chain hasn't started eating through the cover. I literally did leave everything in the bottom, didn't I? I was just laughing. I left the... You can't quite see that. Let's just move things down a little bit. I literally pulled the crank out and just left everything laying there. All the guides are still in there. And that was to block the hole up. Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's what this is actually from another engine I repaired. I put this in here, but this is what they'd left out of mine. They left this out, the spring, and that bolt was missing as well. So I just put these bits in from another engine to keep them all together. So, okay. It will come out surely. Would you believe that? Anyhow, what I'll do, I'll pull them pulleys off and pop the cams out and the tappets off, and then we'll have a little look at that. Right, let's sort that lot, all that lot out of the way. I've never had any of this apart before, so it's interesting to see, because I mean, obviously this has suffered some sort of an oil related failure. Yeah, looks, and that's the inlet cam. Looks all in pretty good order. There's some minor marks on the journals there, but nothing won't polish out. You can see why this engine, looking at the cam profile, get that in right line, you see how much very pointed, very equal the opening and closing ramps are, how pointed the peaks are. You can see why these engines are quite high performance, because that really is quite a high lift and quite a snappy, what you call a snappy profile. Yeah, that cam's in perfectly good order, nothing wrong with that. So presumably what's happened is the classic duratec problem. Burning oil, ran low, cavitation in the oil pump, done the bearings and all the rest of it. So there will have been some lack of oil pressure at some point, or low oil pressure to the cylinder head. So expect a few minor marks. No, it's all looks exactly like the other one. A few minor marks from storage on there, but nothing problematic. Nope, that's fine. The remaining oil in the head here feels pretty good, so not too drastic. Right, let's move things up slightly more in line where we are. Right, so the oil remaining in the head here is pretty good. It doesn't appear to be any metal particles or anything laying in here. What's Eric from I Do Cars called it? Forbidden glitter, that's it. Usually congregates in places like this. Although there's a very slightly grey sort of hue to it in there. Yeah, so there's going to be something in there. It's got to. Right, to remove the head, I'll leave the bucket tappets in, I think. We can get one out and have a look. We'll come back to that one. The cam journals in the cylinder head. Very minor marking there. All look pretty good. Likewise, the caps all look good. There's No marks in any of them caps at all, really. Slight discoloration, but I can't see any problem with that whatsoever. Emergency lost key. Right, just get this timing guide out of the way. Yeah, I do remember when I got this engine, when you turned it over the spanner, you could really hear something knocking and clanging inside. And I think all I actually did, I remember taking the top off, took the cover off, and I did have a couple of goes at practice timing it. But certainly none of these components have been removed. I've no idea on the miles at all, but I mean, that guide there, probably serviceable condition, really. I think it's original. Date code 05, yeah. So that's an original part. Pretty good condition. Likewise, the tensioner one's just as good. There's no major grooving. I think broken off the end. Usually about a little bit of wear here where the hydraulic tension sits against it, but again, I mean, you wouldn't put them back, but it's perfectly serviceable if you wanted to. Yeah, I do remember now. I stripped another one of these down. I did a timing chain job on one, that's right. And it came with a new one of these and new one of these. And I remember when I took the crank out, I did put that in there so I knew where it was. That's why it's back in there. Trying to remember why I put that in there now. I've no idea, but it must have been mad enthusiasm. Oh, no. It's alright. Martin's got confused here, folks. No. The tensioner was never missing from my engine. There's a pad run, that's it. No. Got confused. That runs like that, and there's actually a tensioning pad goes at the bottom. You can't, let's just go down there so you can actually see that. Right. What it was, there was a pad here, that's it. A fixed pad. That was what was missing from my engine. So no, sorry, I'm getting confused. I've got spares of these from another engine. Ignore all that. Martin's got it all in the wrong order. But that's what they'd left out of mine. So the tensioner was right round here and the chain was loose. So I stole it out of this one. Right, it's okay. We're right now. So I think we do now is we shall pause things and I shall pop the head off and have a look and see what that looks like. Right, once the head bolts out, boy, were they tight. They've definitely never been out before. They've got to be the originals. Now, we have separation. I'm going to stick this over on the bench and we'll have a look at that in a while. Right, oh yes. She was definitely another one of these heavy oil burners. Aha. It appears we've got one, maybe two pistons that have been beating against the cylinder head. No idea. Right, let's remove the old finger slicer. Seems to be in good order. And obviously there's no crank in there, so the pistons are just... In fact, you'll see how good the piston rings are by... Yeah, there's definitely some marks on that one where it might have been hitting the head. Yeah, the pistons are just falling down the balls on their own. That's the typical sign of a duratec with a severe lack of piston rings. Balls feel perfect. really good actually. There's bound to be a few minor scuff marks on the bores, typical of these short skirted pistons, but is that going to come out of there? Yeah, so the oil pump chain now. Oil pump chain doesn't seem too bad. Not under a lot of extreme load. So, let's flip this upside down and have a look in the bottom. It never ceases to amaze me just how much oil seems to congregate in an engine, even when the sump's been off several times and the crank's missing and the oil filter's been removed, and still it leaks oil. Now inside the, I don't know if you can quite see that, that's hidden around there, in the oil filter where the oil filter screws on, there's a little bit of grey paste just in there as well. Not a lot, but enough. Anyhow, let's get the sump zipped off and then see what we, I can't remember what it's like inside the sump at all. I really don't. I remember literally just zapping the sump off, whipping the crank out and just stuffing it all back together. So let's have a look, see what we find. Right, let's refresh ourselves on what it's like in here. I think someone's stolen something. Yeah, there's a few bits in the bottom of the sump. I do remember seeing those. I mean, I wasn't that bothered at the time. I knew it was a scrap engine. It was only bought for an experiment, and I wanted some external parts off it, and everything has come in very useful. I've used loads of the bits. I will be taking the oil pump apart to find out what that feels like. See what's in there. Right, let's have a look in the old. Oh, didn't even put that back on. I can't remember I looked into this before. It'd be interesting to see what this looks like. Let's have a quick see what's up the pickup. Well, there is, I don't know if you can catch it in the light. You probably can't see it. There are a few flakes stuck in there, but nothing major banged out at the end. I guess that's probably fallen out in the past. Right then. What did I leave in and what did I take out? Well, it's easy enough to get the pistons out. And it's the usual, oil control ring is actually completely seized in the piston. It does move. Compression and scrape has gone. Now this piston's clearly been hit in the head. It's got the telltale dents. It's often number one that seems to go. Because remember rightly, it was number one that blew up in the other duratec I stripped a while ago. And of course the bearing has well and truly spun. I mean, that rod is definitely scrap. Now the pistons show very little signs of scuffing here, and the anti-friction coating is still in very good condition. Not a lot of blow by, so that won't have harmed that piston. It's not really been hit that hard. The ring's still turn free there, so I mean obviously the common rod is scrap. I may well press these off actually and just scrap these rods while it's apart. And there's the sticky, gungy, burnt oil on there, but that piston's all right. And what's in door number 2? Yeah, these pistons are just falling out on their own. Got my head in view. And it's the same story, exactly the same story. Ring stuck in, oil on the top. Looks like we may have had a tiny bit of contact, although for some reason I put the bearing cap back on that one. I clearly threw it away on number 1 because it was so, excuse me, absolutely had it. I presume this must be the same. Oh yeah, that's exactly the same. I don't know why I kept the cap. Oh yeah, well and truly spun. There is actually a line there. That's where the bearing used to sit, where the dark line is there. And you see that other line, that's where the bearing shell's moved over and was running there. Cap says the same thing. That was on that way round. Yeah, the shell had basically come out and skewed itself, so it skewed itself in the rod and was spun, so that one's definitely scrap. I've actually got 2 good con rods that came out of that other blown up one, and I think I've got one other one out of my friend's Volvo. So I have actually got a complete set of pistons and rods, so that's quite handy. Yeah, this piston's touched the head as well, so right, we'll keep that one. And that bearing cap can go straight in the scrap bin. Right, number 3. Well, that was falling out. Yeah, that one wanted out fairly quickly. Yeah, same scenario. It's all hammered and chewed up. I really am surprised at these skirts though. These are fantastic. There's hardly any scuffing on there at all. This piston hasn't hit usual gummy oil. Yeah, that one's definitely had it. Now number 4, I've left the cap on, and it looks like I've left the bearings in as well. So maybe we've got a good one. Yeah, no, hardly any scuffing on the skirt again. No contacting with the head. Oh, and the bearings are fine in this one. That's why I left them. Yeah, bearings aren't touched. Absolutely perfect. Oh, that's good. I mean, obviously, if I was going to use these rods, I'd check them for straightness, but that means I have actually got, yeah, I've actually got a good block, good set of pistons, and a good set of rods. So, excellent. Usual, say the ring's completely in, uncommon. So, yeah, that's okay. Now, I put all the mains back in. Yes, I'll come to this. I'm curious to see how much metal actually made it through this oil pump. It does feel a bit, one place feels a bit notchy. Right, I'll halt proceedings for a minute and I'll buzz the main bearing carrier out and we'll see what that's got to say. Well, that's the mains and the carrier out. Now just I don't remember because I haven't had it apart before, quite Martin. Right, now, the main bearings. Focus on that, you'll see there's like lots of pitting on them, little patination. That is debris that's gone through the oil and just pinged into the bearing, and it's quite rough. They're all the ones in the block are similar. Ones in the carrier, yeah, they've got signs of markings, debris, dirt. See, a good chunk's gone through that one. See the line on it. Same on that one. But that patination is purely dirt and debris. Very soft debris it's gone through. Obviously the old bearing material that broke up went for a wander. Yeah, they're all pretty much the same, so I can presume that the small bits of particles went through the filter, through the screen, through the pump, through the filter. So, I mean, none of them have spun. They're all tight in there. You can see none of them have moved because they're all as they were from factory. So, there's nothing wrong with this block. A set of rings and this block's good to go. So I'm definitely going to keep it. Now, the oil pump. I think the oil pump and the oil filter will tell us an interesting story. Wear on that, nothing serious. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to buzz the oil pump off and take that apart and have a look at it and see just what it looks like internally. It hopefully is in better condition than the one we took off that other engine, because actually I've still got over here hanging up, and that is the oil pump bolt that was through there, and that was number 1 piston. So I've kept that as a little souvenir of the duratec that let go. So let's get the oil pump off and then bring you back to see what that looks like. Well, there's quite a surprise, the oil pump. There's a tiny mark in there on the side there. Otherwise, it's all as it was machined. On this side, there's the working face. It's absolutely perfect. There's not a scratch. That's dirty oil there. That's made it worse. Not a scratch on it. That's the inner part of the rotor. There's no roughness to it at all. It doesn't feel rough. It feels perfect. And the outer part it's got a couple of minor marks on the outside. I mean, it's spun round obviously a few times. It's had a bit of debris through it, but there's one shiny bit there. The end faces, not sharp. There's no dents inside there. There's no scoring, no scuffing. Wow, that's interesting. I mean, to my mind, that oil pump is perfectly serviceable, and I would use it again. Give it a thorough clean out. In fact, there's no debris in it. There's no debris down inside there at all. There's nothing in it whatsoever. Well, okay. Now I'll bring you over and have a look at the sump. The sump's the usual story. Pretty grotty and horrible. And here we are down by the drain plug. We've got loads of bits of metal ground up. I think this ground up quite slowly, because this is like cast iron residue off the crank, which is not that gritty considering. I think that's why the oil pump survived well. I think it was like a slow progression rather than a quick sort of blow up like the other one. Yes, it's definitely not quite right in there, but not what I was expecting. There's the odd little chunk of bearing in there. Now the oil filter. Let's have a look at our chum here. I chopped him open yesterday and I haven't had a look in the bottom. He's a little beaten up, but let's tip him out and see what he has to say. No, there's no chunks in there whatsoever. It's possibly still in the element. Very, very surprising. Let's get a screwdriver and just scrape inside there, see what's in there. One. Right. Yeah. No. Scraping those couple of pleats, there doesn't appear to be anything in there whatsoever. Just give that one a scrape. Nope. That seems pretty clean, so there's nothing in the bottom. Tiny bit of like the irony deposit. There's no chunks and no bits in there or anything of that nature. So yeah, I think it was just like a slow grind up, and so there's no big chunks in that sump. Okay, surprising. Now the cylinder head, obviously this is all the oil, a bit like the SCZ Tech. These obviously aren't the plugs out of it because it's there. There must be something I just stuffed in there. Yeah, number one piston was just touching the head here. The others didn't. I think it was just the oil. You can see how easy the oil wipes off. So I've got no question that head's not a good one. That shouldn't be a problem. That won't have done any harm. It hasn't even marked the alley. So the clean up and the decoat, that's a good head. You can see that number one cylinder had gone off colour compared to the rest, because obviously the bearing had gone. I do remember the bearing was, I think, completely gone, or no, spun, badly spun, and obviously the piston's travelling a bit further and it's affecting the compression and that. So no, it's a good head. I think the sump might need a bit of a clean out, but no major horrors in there. There's one or two tiny little slithers of bearing material, but they're very, very minor. Not wasn't anticipating. So the oil pump's fine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to basically stick all the good bits back together. I'll probably press them con rods off the pistons, throw all the three of them away to scrap, just reassemble the rest and keep it for parts. So I've got a set of rods. I think I actually kept a couple of pistons out of the other engine. So barring a crankshaft, I've got pretty much a complete engine. Now the 1.8 and 2 litre share the same crankshaft. They share the same con rod as well. The only difference is the bore size changed. And obviously the head's changed a bit, but fundamentally you could nick a crank and rods out of an 18 and away you go. So job's a good one. So yeah, that's what's the inside of that looks like. I think, in fact, if I remember rightly, the end of that crankshaft is, yes, it's that one. That is the end of the crankshaft. Sitting over here in the Lister G1, and you can see the actual marks in the bearing. So that's the main bearing there. That was the end of that crank. So some of the cranks come back to use. So that's what we found with that. So another one to go back in the shed, or reassemble and go back in the shed for spare parts. So it's quite an interesting one. I've often wondered how bad it was, but no, pleased to report all good. So there we go. Nice little mess that might clear up on a Thursday afternoon. So I hope you've enjoyed this little, well, not little, but over half an hour investigation into another duratec that suffered the classic low oil pressure and burning oil, etc., and see what you can salvage. So you could throw away basically what is a perfectly good engine for the want of a couple of components. So it just shows you. Anyhow, thank you very much indeed for watching. Please like and subscribe. Gained a couple more subscribers today, and I'm really pleased with that. It's a very satisfying result. So thank you very much indeed for watching, and bye for now.